I think the first thing we would do would be to throw away the existing theory, whatever that may be. Now, I'm not talking about throwing away evidence. I'm talking about the theory. And I think then we would rebuild. We'd start with the timeline. We'd go through the crime scene again, the victimology, the digital evidence, the communications, the suspect universe, the suspects that are out there, and then the behavioral analysis. Um, I we don't want to know who we think did it. We want to know what happened. And I think that's the most important part here is we want to know what.
Yeah, I think it's tough for us on the outside to criticize either the sheriff's department or the FBI because we're not there. Should the Pima County sheriffs brought in the FBI sooner? There's some aviation attributes or benefits that the sheriff's department had that apparently the sheriff shut down a month before. Maybe they could have done some aerial research or investigation the day of, when Nancy first went missing. So there are a lot of things that we can look back in that regard. Did they give up the house too soon? And was there some evidence missed when other people went inside of it, et cetera? So, I mean, every investigation is going to have some problems like that. What you just have to hope for, they're not insurmountable. And so far, we don't know of any bits of evidence that were perhaps lost that were insurmountable, meaning we can never get them back and they're lost forever. But the inside investigators may know that. So I'm hesitant to criticize any one person, not to mention an agency, when I don't have all the facts to go on. Do we all wish this was solved like a CSI episode or Criminal Minds? Of course, but it doesn't happen that way in real life. The Lindbergh baby kidnapping took 2 years. There's other cases that took, much longer. The last real kidnapping, I think, was Sidney Riso, the Exxon executive in North Jersey in 1992. That took 3 weeks. And obviously, we're well past 3 weeks with Nancy Guthrie. That was an actual kidnapping. Who knows what the heck we have here? And we discussed that an episode or two ago, Ray, with Natalie Schilling. So, so mistakes made. I'm sure there are, and I'm sure bosses as well as individual investigators, maybe question some things they did or didn't do. And I want to come up with one specific example that just was in the news in the last day or so. But I'll turn it back to you in terms of how you look at things such as this. We both worked on task forces, FBI, other agencies. How do you see what you know so far?
Uh, if I came into this case, maybe a day late with the Bureau like you, my first concern would be classification. I wouldn't want investigators thinking, well, is this a missing elderly woman? Is this a possible abduction? Is this a homicide? The reason why is because you have all these things, Jim. You have the camera activity. You have the camera then disconnected. You got blood evidence. You got missing person. She's missing from her residence. The circumstances are unusual. And you have communications that have floated in and out of this case. So I guess, Jim, here's the point. At what point would we stop treating something like this as a missing person investigation and start treating it as a potential homicide?
Every dead person found at a scene is, by investigators' perspective, is considered a homicide until proven otherwise. In my working of these types of cases, and these are very, very rare, but even from a historical perspective, I would have walked in the door, assuming she's not a walk away after an hour or two. Nothing like that made sense, as some older people do sometimes, or real little kids. Then just handle it as a forced abduction. So I'm not saying the word kidnapping. We don't know if that's the case or not, but a forced abduction for whatever reason. So there's absolutely nothing wrong with the investigators doing that from day one. Now, they can combine different modalities of investigative energies, if you will. They can put out search dogs and cadaver dogs and helicopters and aircraft and drones and search all the surrounding area. do neighborhood canvasses, of course, knocking on doors. I'd like to think they did all those things. I'm not sure exactly how much that first Sunday, but certainly by Monday and Tuesday, I think they turned the crime scene over, or they released it, I should say, by Tuesday. That was probably done too soon. Then they recaptured it again a few days later. Um, and, I don't want to be a one trick pony here, but I do think this abduction had to do with Savannah Guthrie and the fact that she was a celebrity. And I'm hoping in the very, very early days, certainly within that first week, they started mining her emails at NBC going back at least 5 years. And every single person that's not a friend or a producer or some, other celebrity reaching out for her, everybody who's sort of a stranger who sent her these emails, or to her production staff, folks like that, PR people, that's what should have been investigated early on. And I hope it started then, and I hope it's still going. If they've covered everything for 5 years, go back another 5 years and find out who's been emailing her then. So these are the types of things that, maybe you couldn't have put a full court press on the very first day or two. First, you're looking for, her wandering around. You're looking for any evidence, her body, maybe clothing, anything like that. But after that, they should be focused on the inner circle, which they did do, but then also the inner circle of Savannah. She's the celebrity here, and I'm hoping they just focused on that too, meaning all the communication she's had over the last 5 to 10 years. I have a feeling someday, if this case is ever resolved, the person who took Mrs. Guthrie is going to be in that email list somewhere under some ruse or something to get Savannah's attention. He didn't get it, and he decided to do this.
Jim, I'm going to tell you, if I would have came on this job, the house to me is the first crime scene. Until I have evidence tell me otherwise. Now, you and I know that there's never just one crime scene. Very rarely is there just one crime scene. Sometimes there is, but very rarely. In this situation, I think we have an abduction site. We have a site where she was killed, or she died, and the last is the disposal site or burial site. So I'm going to look. I'm going to make sure, as you said earlier, we're going to preserve that residence. We're going to recover every single piece of digital evidence that we can. We're going to look for the camera systems, router information, Wi-Fi, entries and accidents. We're going to canvas. We're going to do a timeline, do all those things. But here's one of my biggest philosophies. A lot of times people let technology tell them what evidence exists. And I'm a firm believer that get the expert in there, the forensic examiner, and let him tell you what exists. Look at that camera issue. I mean, I'm not even sure all the information that was out there actually came through. If someone tells you, "Hey Jim, just want you to know that the doorbell camera didn't record anything," would you accept that?
I'd want a second opinion, that's for sure.
Absolutely, absolutely. That's why we have forensic people. Get them in there. Here's the thing that was really big in this, Jim, was the ransom communications. They're fascinating because every communication is from an unknown offender and is potentially evidence.
Right. I just want to follow up. There's a big controversy now about flock cameras in the U.S. Do we want these cameras on our highways, on our intersections, recording tags as they go by? Perhaps if there were flock cameras in Tucson in the area of Nancy Guthrie's house, we'd have more information right now than perhaps we do. Do we want to be more security conscious so we can catch offenders like this? Or are we giving up our privacy and private rights, things like that, where the government, I'm using air quotes here, but Big Brother knows where we are all the time. I have no problem with people knowing where I am as long as it's not being abused. Phones are a little bit different, but my car driving down a highway, and if they had flock cameras in Tucson and whatever time it was, 2:10, 2:30 a.m., that it seems like Mrs. Guthrie went out the house, probably in a car. A flock camera would have picked up a bunch of cars, and they could start
Correct.
working backwards and figuring out where they are. Yeah, the only news this week about the Guthrie case is, the lawsuit may have been filed a while ago, but it was at least back in the news today. And I remember staying up late on a Friday night here on the East Coast watching this break that they thought they had a person of interest, I don't know, 20, 30, 50 miles away from the Guthrie household and not too far from the Mexican border. And a person of interest named Carlos Palazuelos, if I'm pronouncing that right, he was held in custody for 8 hours. His, I think, brother-in-law was in the house, mother-in-law, and the homeowner, 4 people total. And now the Pima County Sheriff's Office is being sued for $3.5 million. And the lawyer wants questions answered. Why were his rights, violated? Apparently, the search affidavit is still sealed for whatever reason. The sheriff's department is not releasing it. So again, another aspect of this case that has to be resolved. We could argue about mistakes made. Maybe this was a mistake to serve the search warrant on the person's house, but would it have been a mistake not to serve the search warrant on the person's house? And this is what police and law enforcement, FBI deal with all the time. Do we have the probable cause? In this case, they took it before a judge. The judge signed off. Nobody was permanently detained, but I guess for 8 hours, at least Mr. Palazuelos himself had his freedom restricted, and they're trying to, the family's trying to get some money out of this. So, rightly or wrongly, I won't comment on that part. Maybe they just did a soft knock. The law enforcement, hey, can we talk to you? We're the sheriff's department, Nancy Guthrie case. We have the local sheriffs here. Maybe the FBI. Can we come in and talk to you? And maybe that's all they would have needed. Understand they went in. They may have kicked the door down, guns, everybody on the floor. This will be resolved in court, maybe out of court, who knows, but we'll see where this goes. So as far as I know, that's the latest news from this case after we did our blitz about 2 weeks ago, or maybe a week and a half ago with the emails. And I hope people are still listening to that. Actually, Natalie Schilling wrote a Substack. If you want to get a transcript of it, look under her Substack, and she lays it out, in bullet points, some of the things to look for in this case. So in terms of the linguistics of these notes, these emails, which we're not saying they're the abductors, but if we at least identify the person or persons who wrote those emails, I think it's one, that could at least shut down one aspect of the investigation.
I hope you agree with me. If you don't, please tell me. But I think if you and I got this case together, I think the first thing we would do would be to throw away the existing theory, whatever that may be. Now, I'm not talking about throwing away evidence. I'm talking about the theory. And I think then we would rebuild. We'd start with the timeline. We'd go through the crime scene again, the victimology, the digital evidence, the communications, the suspect universe, the suspects that are out there, and then the behavioral analysis. We don't want to know who we think did it. We want to know what happened. And I think that's the most important part here is we want to know what
and why it happened.
Exactly. I think the why, Jim, is a lot easier than the what in this case. I think I feel very comfortable in your earlier analogy, and we've been saying this all along, that this was tied into Savannah and not her mother. This was not, her mother was targeted because of her daughter, not because of who she was.
Find out someday, I hope.